One of the exciting new features of the IPBT manager is the macro recall function. This is simply an API command that allows you to call a macro from a remote location, such as a control panel or another machine. The API server itself is the same one that runs the manager, so you'll need the IP address of the machine running the manager and make sure that you're connected to port 3000. Here's an example of sending a macro recall API command. Here I'm using the Postman application to send the command. As you can see, I have the address as my localhost on port 3000, and the endpoint is simply called macro. Now you want to include a header on your HTTP post request. This header is the content type header and should be set to application/x-www-form-URL encoded. And in the body of your HTTP request, you want to have a parameter called macro name, and then the value of this parameter will be the name of the macro you're trying to call. In this example, we're using new macro. As you can see, we have a response saying macro sent successfully. Now, if we change the macro name to something that doesn't exist, and then send it again, we'll get a message saying macro not found. Of course, it's still up to you to make sure that the commands listed in your macro are executing properly. Now, one feature unique to the IPX is that you can also send macros using a Telnet wrapper. So if you go into your setup under Telnet wrapper setup, you'll see that there's a Blue River wrapper on port 5100. Once that's enabled, we can send a macro directly through Telnet. You'll also want to make sure that you restart the manager if this is the first time enabling the wrapper. Now, here's an example of sending a macro via Telnet using Putty. I've connected to the Blue River wrapper on port 5100, and I simply send the command macro space the name of the macro. And as you can see, we got a response back saying macro sent successfully. Alright, that wraps up the macro recall video. Thank you for watching.